You're being dramatic, Emma. This is what family does. We take care of each other. My brother Marcus stood in my own living room wearing one of my vintage band t-shirts, while his wife Vanessa lounged on my Italian leather sofa with her feet up. I'm managing the property now, he said, arms crossed. You were gone for 3 months. Someone had to step up. I stood in the doorway of my own Manhattan loft, my luggage still in hand from the airport, staring at the locks they'd changed while I was overseas closing a $6 million deal. The key I'd used for 7 years didn't work anymore. The doorman had apologized but said he'd been instructed by the new authorized resident. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a hostile takeover. Before I tell you how I used their own greed to send them to federal prison without ever raising my voice, tell me in the comments. Have you ever had a family member try to steal something that belonged to you? Because I'm reading every single story. I took an Uber to a hotel in Midtown. It was a boutique place, overpriced, the kind with complimentary champagne in the lobby, and rooms that smelled like lavender. But all I could think about was that I was paying $600 a night for a stranger's bed while my brother and his wife were sleeping in mine. The loft I'd bought when I was 28 after 4 years of working 8 zero-hour weeks. The place I'd saved $400,000 for the down payment. The home I'd built from nothing, while Marcus was still asking our parents for gas money at 35. I didn't sleep. I sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city lights blur through the glass, and tried to understand how we got here. But I already knew. This wasn't new. This was the inevitable conclusion of a pattern that started when we were kids. See, in my family, there are 2 types of children. There's Marcus, the golden son who could do no wrong even when he was doing everything wrong. And then there's me, the safety net, the backup plan, the one who existed to catch him every time he fell. I learned what I really was to them 4 years ago. Marcus called me from some dive bar in Brooklyn at 2 inches the morning. He was crying, drunk, saying he'd made a terrible mistake. He'd dropped out of the MBA program I'd paid for, the full $180,000 tuition I'd wired directly to Columbia Business School, because he said it was his last chance to turn his life around. He swore he was going to make something of himself. But instead, he'd taken the money, attended 1 semester, then used the rest to open a craft cocktail bar with his buddy from college. The bar lasted 11 months. The concept was pretentious, the location was terrible, and Marcus had 0 business sense. When it failed, he called me sobbing, saying he couldn't tell our parents because Dad had a heart condition, and the stress might kill him. I didn't tell them. I absorbed the loss of $180,000 like it was nothing, because that's what the safety net does. We cushion the fall, and we don't complain. But here's what I didn't know then. When you're the safety net, people don't see you as generous. They see you as infinite. They see your money as family money that you're just holding temporarily until they need it. I wasn't a person with boundaries. I was a resource to be extracted. That night in the hotel, I finally understood what this was. This wasn't desperation. This was asset liquidation. Marcus didn't break into my loft because he was homeless. He broke in because he believed he was entitled to it, and he was using the one weapon I couldn't easily fight. Our mother. You see, Marcus had moved our 8-year-old mother into my loft with him. He'd told her I'd agreed to it, that I wanted her closer to family while I was traveling. He knew I wouldn't drag an elderly woman out onto the street. He knew the optics would destroy me. He was using her fragility as a shield, and he was counting on my conscience being stronger than his greed. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen, a ruthless corporate attorney I'd worked with on acquisition deals. I told her I wanted them out immediately. I wanted the police. I wanted an emergency eviction. I wanted my home back. Emma, listen to me, Patricia said, her voice dropping low. You have a problem. A serious one. It's my loft, I snapped. My name is on the deed. It doesn't matter, she said. They're claiming tenancy. Your brother is saying you had a verbal agreement that he could manage the property while you were abroad. He's saying he's been paying utilities, that he has proof of residence. And because your mother is there and she's elderly, no judge in New York is going to sign an emergency eviction without a lengthy court process. We're looking at 90 days minimum, maybe 6 months. I felt my chest tighten. 6 months. He'll gut the place. He'll take out loans against it. I know, Patricia said quietly. That's what he's counting on. He wants you to settle. He wants you to pay him to leave. It's extortion, Emma. But fighting it in housing court will cost you $50,000 in legal fees and half a year of your life. I hung up the phone and stared at the hotel room ceiling. Marcus had outmaneuvered me. He'd weaponized tenant protection laws, elder care optics, and my own guilt. He thought he'd won because that's what he always did. He created a mess, and I cleaned it up, and we never talked about it again. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't going to negotiate. I was going to destroy him so completely that he'd never come near me again. I realized then that housing court wasn't going to help me. I needed to bypass the landlord-tenant system entirely. I didn't need an eviction order. I needed evidence of a crime, and I needed to make him confess to it on camera. For 5 days, I went completely silent. I didn't call Marcus. I didn't respond to Vanessa's text messages asking me to stop being so difficult. I didn't visit my mother. I let them settle into my loft, drinking my wine, sleeping in my bed, thinking they'd broken me. I needed them comfortable. I needed them arrogant, because arrogant people don't read the fine print. See, my brother has a fatal flaw. It isn't just greed. It's the belief that he's smarter than everyone else in the room. He thinks rules are suggestions. He thinks paperwork is just a formality, and I was counting on that arrogance to be the rope he'd use to hang himself. On day 6, I called him. I used a calm voice, the voice of someone who'd accepted defeat. Marcus, I said, I can't fight you anymore. You win. I'll sign over the loft. There was a pause, then a huff of satisfaction. I knew you'd see reason, he said. This is what's best for the family. Mom needs stability. You're always traveling anyway. But there's a complication, I said. My lawyer says, if I just transfer the deed to you as a gift, the IRS will hit you with a massive tax bill. You'd have to pay taxes on $2.3 million in value. You'd have to sell the place just to cover it. I heard him shift. We can't afford that, Emma. I know. I lied. So here's the workaround. We have to make it look like you've been a co-owner all along, like we had a partnership agreement from the beginning. Okay, he said slowly. How? I send you a document called a retroactive partnership affidavit, I said. It's standard for real estate. You just sign a statement saying that you invested $400,000 of your own money into the down payment back when I bought the loft, that we've been 50-50 partners this whole time, and that you've been managing the property in exchange for equity. If you sign that, the title company can process the transfer as a buyout of my share, and there's no gift tax. He hesitated, and this was the moment. The smart criminal would smell the trap, but Marcus wasn't smart. He was greedy. Will the government see this? He asked. I don't want the IRS auditing me. No, I lied smoothly. This is just for the title company's internal files. It sits in their records. It's a formality to make the transfer legal. I held my breath. All right, he said. Send it over. Let's get this done. He took the bait. He thought he was outsmarting the tax system. He thought I was helping him steal my own home. But he forgot that I don't just close deals. I find the leverage that destroys the other side when they try to cheat me. While Patricia was drafting the fake affidavit, I was doing what I should have done years ago. I was digging. I didn't need to hire a private investigator. People leave digital trails everywhere. They just assume no one's looking. I started with the public records. I pulled the property deed, the mortgage documents, every filing associated with my loft. And there it was, a notarized power of attorney document dated 3 months ago, right when I'd left for Dubai. It claimed I'd granted Marcus full authority to manage, lease, and make decisions about the property in my absence. The signature looked like mine. The notary stamp was official, but I'd never signed it. I'd never even heard of this notary. Marcus had forged it. I downloaded the document and zoomed in on the notary seal. Patricia connected me with a forensic document examiner within 2 hours. He took one look at it and laughed. This is amateur hour, he said. The seal is from a notary in Queens, who retired 4 years ago. The commission number doesn't match current state records. Whoever made this bought a fake stamp online. This is textbook notary fraud, a Class D felony in New York. But I wasn't done. I logged into the property management portal for my building. Marcus had told the board he was the authorized manager. He'd been collecting rent from a subtenant. He'd moved into my second bedroom. $2,800 a month for the past 3 months. He'd pocketed $8,400 in rental income and never reported it to the IRS. That's tax evasion. I sat back in my hotel room chair and felt that cold smile spread across my face. Marcus had forged a legal document, committed identity theft by impersonating me to a notary, and failed to report income to the federal government. If I could get him to double down, to claim ownership on record, he'd be confessing to multiple felonies. They couldn't both be true. He couldn't have forged my signature and also be a legitimate co-owner. If he signed my affidavit claiming he'd invested $400,000 and been a partner for years, he'd be creating a contradiction that would bury him. I forwarded everything to Patricia with a simple message. The trap is ready. Book the conference room and the videographer. The law offices of Chen and Associates didn't look like a place where families reconciled. The conference room was all glass, steel, and a view of the Hudson River that probably cost $800 an hour just to breathe in. I sat at the head of the table in a navy suit, my hands folded, my expression neutral. Patricia sat to my right, looking like she'd walked off the set of a legal thriller. In the corner, a court reporter set up her machine. Next to her, a videographer adjusted his camera, the red recording light already blinking. At 3 p.m. sharp, the elevator opened. Marcus walked in with Vanessa like they were arriving at a closing they'd already won. He wore a suit I recognized, one I'd bought him for a job interview 2 years ago that he never went to. Vanessa had on designer sunglasses and carried a Birkin bag, probably fake. They didn't greet me. They didn't ask how I was. Marcus just pulled out a chair and looked at Patricia. Let's make this quick, he said. We have dinner reservations. Patricia cleared her throat, the sound sharp as a gavel. Mr. Miller, she began, her voice devoid of warmth. Before we proceed, I need to establish the parameters. This is a sworn affidavit. Everything you say is being recorded and transcribed. The video will become part of the official record. We know. Marcus waved a hand. Emma explained it. It's for the title transfer. Patricia slid the document across the table. Sir, as an officer of the court, I'm required to issue a warning. You're about to swear under penalty of perjury that you personally invested $400,000 into this property in 2018, that you've been a 50% owner since acquisition, and that you've managed the property as a co-owner. If this statement is found to be false or contradicts other legal filings, you could face felony charges including fraud, perjury, and falsifying business records. Do you understand? The room went silent. This was his off-ramp. This was the moment a smart person would pause and say, wait, what other legal filings? But Marcus didn't hear a warning. He heard a formality. He saw the loft keys dangling within reach. His greed was so loud it drowned out his survival instinct. He laughed, a dry, arrogant sound. I know what I put into this property, he said, picking up the pen. I've been managing it for years. Emma was never even there. She was always traveling. I was the one who made it a home. State your name for the record and sign, please, Patricia said. Marcus Allen Miller, he announced, signing with a flourish. Vanessa signed next as a witness, her hand steady, excited. They leaned back, satisfied. Marcus looked at me, smirking. Now sign your part, Emma. Transfer the deed. I didn't touch the pen. I looked at Patricia. She nodded and opened her briefcase, pulling out a thick manila folder. She laid it on the table, right on top of the affidavit Marcus had just signed. Vanessa's face tightened. What's that? That, I said calmly, is the notarized power of attorney you forged 3 months ago when I was in Dubai. I tapped the document. You claimed I gave you authority to manage my property, but I never signed this. I pointed at the notary seal. This seal belongs to a notary who retired in 2020. The commission number is fake. You bought this stamp online, didn't you? Marcus's face went pale. I didn't. Then I pulled out the second document. And this, I continued, is the record of rental income you collected from subletting my second bedroom. $2,800 a month for 3 months. $8,400 total. Did you report that to the IRS? Because I checked. You didn't. Silence. Total silence. The only sound was the hum of the video camera. Marcus's eyes darted between the papers like a trapped animal. I leaned forward. So let me make sure I understand. 5 minutes ago, you swore under oath that you've been a 50% owner of my property since 2018. That you invested $400,000. But 3 months ago, you forged a power of attorney because you didn't have legal authority. You can't be both a co-owner and someone who needs to forge documents to access the property. That's notary fraud, Patricia said, her voice ice cold. A Class D felony, plus identity theft for impersonating Emma's signature, plus tax evasion for unreported income. And now, with your sworn affidavit, you've added perjury to the list. Marcus shot to his feet, his chair screeching. You tricked me. You set me up. I didn't trick you, I said, my voice steady. I told you exactly what the document was. You chose to lie because you wanted my home more than you wanted the truth. Sit down, Patricia snapped. The camera is still recording. Every threat is being documented. Marcus collapsed back into his chair, his face ashen. For the first time in his life, he saw the walls closing in. He couldn't be a legitimate co-owner and a forger at the same time. The contradiction was a noose around his neck. Patricia adjusted her watch. Mr. Miller, I have a legal obligation to report evidence of felonies. Before you leave this office, I will be filing this video, the forged documents, and the rental income records with the New York District Attorney's Office and the IRS Criminal Investigation Division. Vanessa's voice cracked. You can't do this. We're family. I'm not your family, Patricia replied flatly. I'm a lawyer who values her license. And I should warn you, forgery, identity theft, tax evasion, and perjury carry combined sentences of up to 15 years. Plus, the IRS will seize your assets to recover unpaid taxes and penalties. What about Mom? Marcus croaked. She's in that loft. She has nowhere to go. Your mother, I said, standing up, is being moved to a proper assisted living facility as we speak. I called her caseworker this morning. She'll have actual care, not whatever neglect you were giving her while you stole my home. I hired professional movers. She'll be safe, which is more than you ever cared about. Marcus stared at me, disbelief and hatred warring on his face. You're sending your own brother to prison. No, I said. I'm cutting off a parasite. If I just evicted you, you'd have sued me, harassed me, bled me dry for years. You'd have come back the moment you needed money again. So I had to end this permanently. I picked up my bag. The police will meet you at the loft in 30 minutes to escort you out. I suggest you start packing. 2 officers arrived at the law office 15 minutes later to escort hostile parties from the premises. Patricia had called ahead. Watching Marcus being walked out by uniformed police felt surreal. A lifetime of enabling ending in fluorescent hallway light. At the elevator, he twisted around one last time, tears on his face. "Emma, please," he begged. "Don't do this. We can fix it. Tell her to stop the filing." "It's too late," I said quietly. "The file was sent an hour ago. You sold me out for a loft you never earned. I'm selling you out for my freedom." Transaction complete. The elevator doors closed on his face. I didn't go back to the loft that day. I signed Patricia's final invoice, left the building, and went straight back to my hotel. The fallout came fast. The district attorney moved within 72 hours. Arrest warrants issued. Assets frozen. Bank accounts seized. Marcus was charged with notary fraud, identity theft, perjury, and federal tax evasion. Vanessa was charged as an accessory. They both took plea deals. Marcus got 3 years in a minimum security facility, plus 5 years probation. Vanessa got 18 months. My mother was settled into a beautiful assisted living community in Westchester with around-the-clock care that I paid for. She never knew the full story. I told her Marcus had made some mistakes and needed time away. She believed me. I sold the loft 4 months later. After legal fees and repairs for the damage they'd caused, I cleared $340,000. I bought a one-way ticket to Barcelona and didn't tell anyone where I was going. Now I'm sitting in a cafe in the Gothic Quarter, with a new phone number, deleted social media, and a clean horizon. To my family, I'm a ghost. A ghost who won. If you believe cutting off toxic family is survival, not cruelty, hit subscribe and tell me, would you have set the trap, or would you have just walked away?